Good afternoon, everybody. Are we live?
Yes, we are live.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's call to order this meeting of the Monterey Public Library Board of Library Trustees. Could we have a roll call?
Yes, do we have, get my list here. Do we have trustee Silveria here? Yes, and we have, you are our new, you are not, no, sorry, Bob is not here. Bob is our new vice chair and he's not here. We have trustee Lorimer here.
Here.
Perfect, and you are our new chair. And then do we have trustee Joshi here? Perfect. And then trustee Morrow. And then we have library director Edwards. Perfect. And we have assistant director Melissa. Perfect. And we have the manager. Then we have a special guest today. All right.
So we do move right into presentation. So if you would like to begin, welcome and thanks for coming.
Oh, yeah. Put this in. Wherever the presentation.
Participation. Yeah. There's a participating.
Yes, if you would like to participate online, you can join via our website at, I do believe it is mpl.org. And then if we do have anyone come in live, or if you are in the Zoom, please raise your hand and then we'll take the question. Let's put it in.
And before we begin the presentation, I did want to go ahead and put in the record that Bob Petty is unable to join us today. For
Yes.
medical reasons. So the presentation is on museum art inventory.
So with that, we'll turn it over to our help getting that.
Yeah, I'm trying to see where it is to pull it up.
Okay.
And then we need to connect it to the sector too.
Go ahead.
That work?
What are you doing? Doing the right things. Okay.
Good afternoon, Library Board of Trustees. My name is Brianna Schmerlin, and I'm the artifact specialist for City of Monterey. I started my job in March of 2024, and the main part of my job is to care for the museum's collections. At any museum, only 3 to 5% of a museum's collection is on display at any given time, and the rest of the collection is in storage. So most of the work that I do is behind the scenes, caring for the collection that is in storage. So the topics for the presentation today. So the main topic is to cover an art inventory that I've been working on. So I will cover the background of the types of collections or the types of works that are in the art collection, projects that I've been working on around the art collection, and then the needs of the collection. There are over 400 works in the collection. 149 of them are on display. So that includes works that are at Colton Hall, Pacific Biological Laboratories, the City of Monterey Museum, as well as art that is in city offices, in the public library, and the public art that is displayed outdoors around the city. 307 artworks are in storage, and 100 of those works are the Monterey Angels. We currently have 4 artworks on loan to other institutions, and one of the artworks is on display. It is on loan to the Monterey History and Art Association, and it is the Casa Munras mural and a mosaic. It was originally displayed in the dining room at Casa Munras, and they commissioned the artist in 1954 to have this piece made for their dining room. The work will be on loan to MHAA until 2034, and the case that the piece sits in was especially designed for this display, and it was inspired by Emil Norman's home in Big Sur. As I mentioned, that artwork is on loan. So one of the projects that I've been working on with Library and Museums Director Brian Edwards, as well as other collections managers at other institutions, is to make sure that our loan agreements are up to date. And so the other 3 works that are on loan are currently at Monterey Museum of Art, and they have those works on loan to store them for us. So we want to make sure we have updated records, as well as the institutions that have the works on loan have updated records on there as well. One of the collections within the larger art collection is the DeHaven collection. The works in this collection had a long path of making their way to the city of Monterey's collection. Augusta Louise DeHaven passed away in December of 1941, and she bequeathed her art to the city of Monterey. However, her children were living in Germany, and this was at the start of World War II. So the US government froze her property under the Alien Sedition Act, and her work sat in storage for almost 2 decades. The trust then went bankrupt, and the artworks went up for auction, and an art dealer in Carmel by the name of Harold Smithson purchased the artworks, and then Mary Jacks, the daughter of David Jacks, purchased the works from Smithson and gifted them to the city, and that was how they ultimately made their way to the city. Several of the artists whose works are in that collection are Armin Hansen, William Ritchell, Euphemia Charlton Fortune, and Paul Whitman. One of the collections that I found interesting when I started working on the inventory is the works of the Peters family. It consists of works by Charles Rollo Peters II, who was the husband. Constance Peters was his second wife, and DeWitt Peters was their youngest son. And I just thought it was very fascinating that there was a family of artists, and they were all inspired by the landscapes in California and in the Monterey area, as well as their travels in Europe. They traveled back and forth between Europe and California. And so a lot of their works focus on the landscapes of the area.
Just a quick question. So where are these works and the previous one? They're in storage.
So the previous 2 from the DeHaven collection, those are in storage at Monterey Museum of Art. The painting on the left, that is on display in the city attorney's office, as well as the photo in the middle. The photo on the right, or the painting on the right rather, that is in storage. The next group of works that I wanted to bring up is the Monterey Angels. Those are a common feature that are seen around town during the holiday season. The photo on the left is part of the display that we had this past December in Fulton Hall. The city initially acquired the works back in 1956. So The volunteer holiday decorating committee for the city commissioned the artist Erica Frank, also known as Erica Martin Hava, to create the Monterey Angels to have as a display during the holidays. And so the initial series that she created was made in 1956. And then that's the one that, in the photo on the left, that is the 1956 version, is the angel on the left. The angel in the center is from 1973, and the angel on the right is from 1999. And so this portion of the art collection still needs to be inventoried and have updated condition reports and photographs. In the larger art collection, we also have public art. And so this consists of statues and sculptures that are around the city, as well as art that's displayed in Monterey Conference Center, the Monterey Sports Center, Colton Hall, and Monterey Public Library. The public art, so on the museum's website, there is a walking tour that you can take to view all of the public art, and it talks about the artists and where each of these pieces are. And as I mentioned, we have artwork that's displayed in the library. There are 31 artworks in the library. Some of the pieces were gifted to the library and other pieces were gifted to the city and then put on display in the space. The painting that is on the left is actually in this room. It is the old Monterey Custom House that was painted by Ferdinand Bergdorf. And then the Brittany landscape with figures, that is just above the main entrance of the library. Now I will go into projects that I've been working on that are related to the art collection. The main project is art inventory. So this involves tracking the location of all of the artwork and updating that in the catalog record. So the main features of the catalog record that should be recorded are the catalog number, object ID, the title of the work, the artist's name, a description of the work, the dimensions, the location, as I mentioned, as well as having updated photographs. And this helps with tracking the condition of the works over time. It's, oh,
It might.
oh, it was closed. Okay.
Okay.
I had catalog.
Oh.
Hold on.
Did you want to re-sign into it?
I can resend it.
Yeah.
I wanted to show you an example of what our catalog records look like.
While she's pulling it up.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a librarian question. So the inventory, is it part of the regular online catalog? Is it separately in another database?
That's what Brianna's gonna be.
Yes,
Oh,
so we
okay.
have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
We were using a system called Past Perfect, or we still are technically. And so what we're working on right now is, what Brianna's pulling up is another website called Cataloging, which is another cataloging site specifically for museums. So the difference for me is that library catalogs are ILS are typically used as for paper documents, wherein for cataloging Past Perfect, they're museum artifacts because it's loan, it's accession, who deeded you the object, appraisals, like all of the condition reports, all of that kind of stuff, which is slightly different than what you would have for just more object based on there. So there's a difference. But then you can do it. So you could do a search via photos, objects, paper, those kind of filter factors.
Yeah, so as Brian mentioned, we recently switched over to the collections management system Catalog It. This is an example of one of the catalog records for one of the public art pieces, which is Taking Flight, or the Great Blue Heron that is out in Lake El Estero. So you'll see there is the object ID listed up on the right here, and that helps with tracking and identifying the piece. We have the description, what the piece is made of. It's part of the City of Monterey art collection. This down here notes the accession number that was assigned to the work when it was purchased. So this is an example of a work that the city acquired through purchasing it. It wasn't a gift. Information about the artist and when the piece was created. There's a lexicon that breaks down, that helps with search terms for the object. So it's a sculpture, and then it can be broken down into further categories based on what the object is. And that's just another way of helping to identify it, and also the searchability of it within notate the dimensions as well as the location. And then you can see here that I inventoried it in November and documented the condition of it. I'm not going to scroll past it just because it had one of the pieces of the record is also the appraisal information. And so just for confidentiality purposes of that. But now you get a sense of what is included within a catalog record.
So you can track them if something is missing. or-
Yes, so that is more difficult with sculptural pieces like this, but for the paintings, that was part of, that was part of the inventory that I worked on or have been working on. And so a lot of the paintings that I was coming across didn't have tags. And so going back and looking at the record and identifying what those object IDs are, and then putting an archival tag on the back of the painting. So whoever comes along, or even if I'm going in, if someone requests a painting to be hung up, I can track it down based off of the object ID tag.
So that will also give you some sort of a little tickler when it's time to revisit something. It's been a certain amount of time.
Yeah. I'm just going to open up one more page here. That's going to be for a couple of slides coming up. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, as I mentioned, for the art inventory, there was the archive, adding the archival tag, tracking the condition of the works and creating a condition report. And then the other part of the inventory is rehousing. So when I first started the inventory, Brian assisted me with it, and we went to an office space that is owned by the city but was no longer in use. And we found over 20 works that were part of the collection that were in this space. And so we inventoried those and then took them out of the office because they were no longer in use. And so that is the rehousing component of putting them back in storage and making sure that they're secure. So this is a photo of our primary collection storage facility. As you can see, there are a lot of materials stored in this space. The photo on the left is where our artworks are stored. At the beginning of this year, we added the cart that you can see there to be able to add more art to the space. There were boxes on the floor that held paintings, as well as the art that I mentioned that we removed from the office space that was also moved to that cart. And then the other two photos, the one in the center and the one on the right, those are the artifacts and the archival and photograph collections. We are at the point where the museum's collections have outgrown the storage space, and it is a concern for the safety of staff as well as the safety of the collection. Collections need to be at least 3 inches off of the floor in case there's a flood. And so things on the floor. Some of the shelf that is behind the cart is a wooden shelf, and the base of it sits on the floor. It's not raised. And so the other thing that is a challenge with being in a historic area is there's a lot of historic buildings, which is great, but it's not great for collection storage. It's not climate controlled and just doesn't have the proper conditions of where collections can be stored. This is our second collection storage site. It is a shared site with other city departments. As you can see from the photo on the left, this is where the Monterey Angels are. Ideally, we would like to have a custom storage Angels and not have them leaning up against one another, and to be able to easily access them as well. The photo on the right is a small storage room within that larger storage area that is dedicated to museums. And so there are a few artworks in there that were on display in the conference center, but they were removed when the conference center was remodeled, and they have been in this space since. And a couple of them have been approved for deaccession, but they weren't sold at auction, and so they have been in storage. I'm going to go back to the previous slide for a moment. In March, an emergency preparedness consultant from the Northeast Document Conservation Center, they have a program currently that is funded through the California State Library, and it is called Ready or Not, and it's specific to emergency preparedness in museums and archives. And so the consultant came out and feedback and advice on next steps for what we should do to maintain the collection. And then in June of this year, I applied for a groundworks grant, and that particular program is related to cultural heritage disaster preparedness. And so with applying for that grant, we're hoping to come up with more storage solutions for the collection. Another component that I worked on is creating an art request form for city staff. As I mentioned, there are artworks displayed in city offices, and the form that we had previously had outdated contact information And so there wasn't an easy way for staff to contact museums if they wanted to add a piece of artwork to their office or have a piece removed. And so I created this Microsoft fill out with the office building that they're in, and just a bit more information of what kind of artworks that they're looking to have in the space and the amount of wall space that they have, depending, because we have such varied sizes of paintings and photographs, getting a sense of what space they're looking to. So now to the future needs of art collection. A bit of what I talked about with storage kind of falls under this. But one of the things that we need to look at is interpretive signage. And I wanted to see if anyone knows where these pieces are located.
One on the left is in Rosaris Way on the way down.
Correct.
The one in the middle is at, I think that's Sister City Park, right?
Yes.
I don't know what it is.
Oh, the one with the wood background, I'm gonna say is the library.
Yes, that is the library. And so those are just a few examples of where we need interpretive signage. The photo on the left is titled Moonwalker, and it was part of the initial acquisition of art when Monterey Conference Center opened. So that was where it was initially displayed, and then it was moved to Bruce Terrace Way. But there currently isn't any interpretive signage to say what the piece is, who the artist is, where it came from. The piece in the middle is at Sister City Park. The photo just below it is what the plaque is at the base of the work. So as you can see, it's really worn. You can't read the text on there to see what the piece is, who it was gifted by. And then the painting on the right, which is displayed in the library, you can see on the left, there is a small wall label. That is a piece of foam board that is still attached to the wall, but the actual label that was to be attached to it has come up. So there isn't any text to say what the piece is and who the artist is. So that is another piece to go through the library, all the city offices, and add signage noting what all of these books are. Especially in city offices, as people come and go in their jobs, some staff don't know that we have an art collection and that pieces are part of it, and so they think that they're that someone in their office before them left artwork behind, and then they learn that it's part of the art collection. Another project would be to review works for deaccession. So this is the formal process of taking works out of the collection. The work on the left is a tapestry that is on display at the conference center, and that was also one of the initial pieces that was acquired when the conference center opened. It's a very large piece. It takes a lot to maintain the maintenance required for a tapestry piece of that size. And if we were to take it down and update it with a new piece, we don't have space to store one of the pieces considered for review. The Path of History mural, that was a map that consists of 8 storage areas. It was displayed on the Portola Hotel, and they no longer wanted it, and it's not in good condition, it's peeling. And so that would be another piece to consider for deaccession. because it's not gonna go back on display and it's not, and it's taking up storage space as well.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yes.
So who reviews it? Is it like the architectural committee or somebody that decides it, or you're like the committee?
So the DX sections, that goes to the Museums and Cultural Arts Commission, and then from there it goes to city council. Another goal that we have with the collection is to make it accessible online. That was one of the perks of switching to Catalog It, is they have an outward facing site called the Catalog It Hub, where the public can view collections. And we currently don't have a way for the public to view the collections outside of visiting museum spaces or the other public spaces that I mentioned,
where there is art on display. And so I wanted to show you an example of what the hub looks like. So this is the Cameron Stanford House in Oakland. And they currently have 550 items on display. And you can categorize it based on what the types of objects are. So they have, let's see, they have a postcard category here. They have different rooms within the house and have the objects organized by those rooms. And so I'll click on the postcards. And so if you click on an individual entry, you'll see this one, they didn't put a name, but it'll list typically the name of the work, where the subject, the year, when it was printed. And so it lists most of what is in the catalog record that we see behind the scenes, but in a public facing way. And the other aspect with this too is digital exhibits can be created through the hub. So if you wanted to create an exhibit around a particular theme, that can be added to the hub as well.
Another future need for the collection is funding for conservation and replicas. This example here is of the Monterey Angels. So this past December, Library and Museum Director Brian Edwards ordered, I believe, 12 replicas of angels and had them displayed on major streets around town. A lot of the angels that we have in storage, because they've been displayed every year for so many years and have been exposed to the weather, they're not structurally in the best condition. And so Brian had these replicas created to have on the street posts on major streets, where they could still be visible but not have exposure to the storms with the strong winds and the rain that were affecting the originals that were on display. And so we did have original versions of the angels on display, but we were selective about which ones could go outdoors based on condition. Another example that would be for conservation, this paint. And as you can see from the zoomed in photo, there are cracks throughout the paint, and that extends through the entirety of the painting. And so that would be something where we would want to have a replica made and the original in storage. Another future need is to create a public art policy. This is something that Brian is working on next steps for. This would involve the display of art in public city buildings as well as outdoor spaces. And this would also be to create a process for residents and businesses to be able to apply for public art and murals. Brian, I don't know if there's anything to say on that.
Just that, yeah, I think this is something that's been on council's agenda and arts council as well, but city council has mentioned public art policy several times. I've mentioned that it is not a straightforward project because if you look at how cities do typically, is that public art policy is often for property, right of way, and public areas that we own. That's the public. Now, if you're a private resident and you have a business, you have to fit into planning guidelines and specific guidelines for how you're doing that. Right? So there has to be a process for that. So currently, if someone is working on a mural on a property, on a private property, they do a sign permit. And so they apply for a sign permit to do a mural. And so the request has been, can we just have a simplified public art process? So with that, I think I've been doing a lot of research on other cities because we also have a National Historic Landmark District. And we have guidelines in Kennedy Road District. We have different districts which other cities of our size do not have. And so we have to keep in mind the historic aspect, art aspect, public aspect, private aspect, and put it in there for a process that will make sense. So that's why it's not as easy as some people may think, and that's why it takes a lot of extra steps to develop a policy for that. But I'll be working on that later this year and early next year.
And then the final need that I wanted to mention is that we needed an updated art appraisal. The last time that there was an appraisal done on the artwork was in 2007. And it's important to have a more updated appraisal done to be able to determine what our insurance coverage should be for the artwork. And the city has acquired artworks since 2007. So there are pieces that are not included within that.
And wouldn't an insurer almost require that to be done or have requested it?
I will say that we have like a certain amount which we provide them. The amount that we have is up to an insured for that. And the city is totally, I think, from what I understand, for some cities, where they're like a general self-insured. This Monterey is self-insured in terms of like a certain number of cities that are self-insured, but we still have our holdings of what our library collection are. They do a total amount. But that photo right there, those are the Bruce Harris murals, and you can see it corrupted, but it's the wear and the rotting on the bottom. When those came off during the storm when was the last time did we do an art inventory? And this is why when I brought on Brianna, and this is one of the things I told her, is I said, I really want us to have an accurate art inventory. What is the condition of all of these objects that are in our collection? Because if you're basing something off of 20-year-old data, and that artwork has been outside for that time, and we haven't done an inventory of what the condition was, when you go back to the file a claim, and you haven't done the work, your claim may get denied. But this item right here, actually, the storms knocked down the posts on that mural, and I had to go and have that taken down and put it in the storage. And then when I took it down, I realized it was full termites. So it's one of those things that, and in the end, I think it's really important for us, the appraisal, to also look at what's the proper scope of our collection. Like what do we have?
One of the pictures that you showed along the recreation trail had been disfigured. You probably remember that. I don't know if you.
Oh, which one?
The tree.
The tree.
Oh, yeah. We're still running out of it.
So how do you protect against that? When storms are one thing, but yes, that one.
Just, you mean like where people have tagged it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So when we
Is it
do,
acrylic paint or something you can do?
there's graffiti protected. So that goes back into like a public art policy, where typically when you're doing an agreement with somebody, that you put on there, that they put in an anti-graffiti code on their artwork. And then you provide anti-graffiti wax. So actually, when we did the mural upstairs on the terrace, I actually wrote that into the agreement that they would provide a coating of anti-graffiti, and provide anti-graffiti wax for it specifically. Because what I will say is that is actually a recreation, that painting right there. The original painting is in our finance office of that Sarah. For that, I believe is like Fossil Graphics. That's a high quality panel that I believe can be cleaned with. Like, so you basically, yeah. So typically, what you want to do is you want to provide, because you can never prevent entirely. Like we had a statue that we've had to have prepared at least twice since I've been here on at Bruce Harris Way and Cannery Road, where it's the Khalifa Monument, and people have bent the bronze glass. And so we had a stainless steel bolt, we had gone in there and fixed it, but you can never fully prevent.
I know that was in production.
Yeah, yeah, so they used a painting which hangs in the finance office as and then just took a scan of it and reproduced it.
So in the worst case, if they've been not just disfigured with bond, you could replace it.
Right.
These are the links for our City of Monterey Museum's website, the link for the public art walking tour, and that can be accessed through the website, iOS and Android, as well as the phone number for an audio tour. And that is on the museum's Instagram.
The art that hangs in the library used to be described on the library website. Is that still the case? The pieces that hang here in the library used to be summarized and described on the library website.
Yeah,
Are they
so
still happening?
yeah, I'll say that. Actually, can you check the audio? I don't know if you get the audio is picking up. Very good. So for the website effort, I don't remember, we had a list as that had been changed since the Sarah statue was
Yeah,
moved
the audio's
over to
fine.
the California History Room. And what I did is when I created that app, I've been working on creating that app. That app, the Monterey walking tours, I took photos of all of the artwork here in the library and posted it on there. So it's linked into the Monterey public art on the website. It still needs city website has a list that includes the Monterey Library collection as a single collection with the different artwork. I was thinking the owl.
Oh, yeah, everything's on, it's all working.
I did have one more question. Let's go on too long for you, but do you have a sense of the percentage of the collection that pertains to local history or use as opposed to general art, like we talked about the tapestry not being something that is about Monterey?
I would say most of the art pertains to the area. Whether it's a painting of a historic building in the area, or a lot of the works that we have are done by artists. And so that's where that ties.
Okay, right, because I saw the Armin Hansen one was in Europe, but local artist.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I have a bunch of questions. They're all because of me being an archival nerd, so maybe I can meet with you, Brian, sometime and discuss stuff. But I wanted to let everybody else know, I wanted to thank Brianna and tell everybody that she's very active in a local group of art librarians and museums and archivists. And Dennis Copeland actually helped start this group. It was called Archival Roundtable. Now it's something like Monterey
It's
Historic Collections. or
The
something
Monterey
like that. Yeah.
Monterey County Regional Collections.
Yeah. But anyway, she's very active in that and has participated a lot in their meetings. She has even taken minutes. for-
Yeah, I take the minutes for the meetings.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Look at that, unless anybody else wants. Thank you very much, Brianna. Yeah, this was really interesting. Okay. So the next thing on our agenda would be to receive the update from Brian on fund development role.
Yeah, thank you. So this is just a brief update. The Friends and Foundation were not able to attend this meeting, but they are planning on to attending future meetings. But wanted to mention that typically, I will come back to here to the Board of Library Trustees with what we've asked for on the wish list of items from the Friends and Foundation. And the outgoing president for Friends and Foundation, what I would like to see on the wish list. And I said, well, honestly, I'd like to see if the Friends and Foundation are interested and willing to invest in themselves for fund development and to put in for this quarter's wish list, which is somewhere between the bank too. So it was somewhere between the nature of, I said, let's say $15,000 to $20,000 to hire a contractor for somebody to work on with us on working on events. And then also we talked also about them hiring somebody as a coordinator for the chocolate and wine event so that they would have a single coordinator, because if you've been involved with that, there are a lot of different pieces. And we want to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. So there would be a single kind of coordinator person from them that they would hire as an event coordinator for that. But the fund development person would work with us in terms of our fundraising strategies, our fundraising plan, to go through and work with me on the letter. I sent a couple drafts, but we haven't sent it out, so I've sent it.
Campaign.
I can't. Yeah, exactly. So I've had a couple drafts that I sent to the Friends and Foundation, but they kind of stalled. So I'm just saying, like, let's get a single letter out. And so we set a date for August 17th as what we want to get out the deadline. And so, but really, I brought that to the Friends and Foundation board, and they were very interested in that. They were supportive of setting aside that money. And somewhere, as I mentioned, somewhere in the nature of $15,000 to $20,000 as a contractor to say, this is what we're expecting, for you to work on. It does sound like the outgoing president, past president, Ali Ladio, might be interested. She had expressed interest there at the meeting about taking on that role. But that's where we're at, because I had said, we could ask for some other collection or program funds, but really, especially with the project coming up with NCIP, and like needing somebody on their side to be the lead and the contact for something that we're doing that work, we need to have this kind of contact for somebody to be like, that's our point person from the Friends and Foundation for moving forward advocacy efforts as well. So it's been left with their Friends and Foundation Executive Committee for them to decide how much, what the specific details are going to be with that position, who that person would be, whether they do hire someone they know, or whether they go out for a formal bid of some sort. But that would be the next step. And then so they would typically be working with myself and Julia and consistently on this, and we talked about having another event, another donor event, probably in November or so. So that's where that is. I'm happy to answer any questions on it.
I have a question, and that is, since it's the Friends and Foundation, they don't have to do a formal sort of bid process if they want to hire consultants. Because they're not a city entity, they don't have to follow those rules, and they can just hire anybody they want.
That's on them. I mean, that's where they have to work on what the contract, whether that's, do they have to have an I-9, the W-9, whatever paperwork for that independent contractor, or they just, is it an hourly employee? Is it a contract for this kind of service for 1 year? That I think
And it doesn't go to the city.
It doesn't go to the
It's not a
city. Right, and they have the funding, so typically they would be sending typically, we would be asking them for, okay, this is what we want. They would then send us a check and write a check out to, Monterey Public Library Trust Fund. We then deposit the check. But instead, they're just using that check to pay for their
And it
regular
doesn't go to
person.
the library at all.
Doesn't go to the library. And so we don't have to deal with the additional costs and, any kind of additional personnel costs that we acquire from having somebody on our payroll.
And they don't want to become an employer, so it would be a. Yes, yes.
I know the NCIP deadline was the 31st, but isn't that also the deadline for NC Gives? Do we have a project for NC Gives?
Yeah, so we can have a development meeting. What's the plan? What's the project? I pitched a couple ideas. I said, do we want to put this in the newsletter? Do we want to, just kind of asking the questions. Do we want to ask the community? Do we want to ask us donors? Like, what do we want? The Friends and Foundation want to do a general campaign, essentially just general fund, to say not general fund, but general support. They want to do, rather than to do a big idea, they want to do a general support campaign.
Will NC get allowed that? Is that one of the things?
It's said, I looked on, no, the issue,
Ask for a big idea.
right, usually that's for big ideas. So what I said is that this year, I have not seen CFMC and MC Weekly host the Q&A session. And then if you look on their website, it's the 2024 project.
And I have one person.
And so they went to 2025. It does say, I went through the application, it does say general support. It says, what's your big idea, or is this general support? So it does say, is this general support? Now, I don't know on their side whether they're, how they're reviewing or limiting or anything like that. I can't speak on that, but I gave my feedback to the Friends and Foundation about, like, here's a couple of ideas and this, but they've been wanting to do, some of their leadership has been wanting to do general support for this.
So who actually submits the thing?
Typically, it is the Friends and Foundation president.
Okay. So and you're on track to get it done because
Been told,
it's, well, it's low hanging fruit.
yes,
It brings in a lot of money and people, I don't even know that people read so much about the project.
What was it?
Library, that's one of my charities.
Right. And, I will say, because I've been involved the past couple of years with it, where we would have committee, we would discuss things, we would discuss projects, I would propose a project. So I'm hoping, I will check back in with Ally, because she said she was going to work on it. Because typically there are a number of questions. What did you get last year? What did you spend this on? Or do you want to use this for, right? And I want to make sure that she has all of those questions answered, because in the past, I've provided a lot of the actual text and content for them to submit. Because they are the ones that submit the form as the Friends of the Foundation, because it's not so much the library, but it is the Friends of the Foundation need to be the ones that submit. So I just have to make sure that when she told me she's going to work on the draft, and that she sends, I'll make sure that they have all of the info. 31st, 1 week. Yep.
And have they ever, I've never heard of them turning people down, but I guess that would be quiet anyway. If there were nonprofits that they declined to accept in the program. But I do have a feeling that we've always gone, whew, we're in. And so it must be a thing.
There have been people turned down.
Yeah,
in the past.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know the exact routes, but I do know I have
So
heard.
this grant application is important.
Yeah, so it is important putting it in there. You want to make sure you've got your quote, you want to make sure you've got all of your statistics there. For it.
Right.
So,
So how much was it last year?
after the matching amount, I think 72. It was either 67 or 72.
When you compare the work for wine and chocolate, it raises about the same amount to the work for this, which is the paragraph. The ratio is
Yeah,
pretty
it's
high.
huge.
It's a good return.
It's a very good return on investment, yes. And we did spend, last year, I did put out a couple different advertisements in the weekly. I don't know if those helped or not. where we put out advertisements for what our project is, and then put out advertisements, because I don't know if people are reading that part in the weekly packet, but when we have the booklet.
Right. Like, the general support for the library, I think, would sell too, as much as.
Yeah, it could be that, oh, somebody doesn't want to give money for archives, or they don't want to give money for a specific thing, but they do want to give it to the library, so.
And with the time frame, it would be probably smart to tease that in the letter that's going in August. People ready for it, not to stop them from giving on the one, but but to have them remember in their holiday giving or however it's.
Right, you want to do it before the end of the calendar year.
Yeah, you're in. Suggest that they could do both. Right. Okay, keep us posted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, did anybody have any questions on where we're headed on fund development for now? Okay, then we will move on with the consent agenda. We have items 3 through 8. If we are okay with all of that, I think to approve them all. Or wants to be polled.
After the information reports, we try to ask if there's any of the meeting and then announce.
Oh, and this says that after.
Yeah, oh yeah, for the, Julie, is there anybody attending online?
We have 0 attendees online, so no public comment at this time.
So that's the consent agenda. Is there anything we want pulled, or do we have a motion to?
I'm going to approve it. Is it okay to then make a comment or two? I have nothing to.
So we have a first.
Second.
Second.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Jamie.
so,
She's fine.
So- all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. So we have, so we can move on from that and discuss whatever comments anybody has.
I just had a comment on the library update and museum cultural things updated all the time, which is you guys have been really busy. This is like the amount of work that 12 people will do. And I'm not seeing 12 people here. So.
Yeah.
They're all out there. On the desk. They're all bookmarked and all.
It's really exciting. Human tech preparation. There's so many things. It's very. Yeah, I did on the financial ones. I'm not sure if I understood how, when you have a deficit in the library trust fund, that doesn't mean you overspent the library trust fund. You spent less than expected.
Right, so it's gonna, you're looking at expenditures on that?
Well, I'm looking at the revenue side, which means that you brought in less than.
Well, no, so that parentheses is actually over, so we adopted budget. It's on the library administration. We adopted a budget, so not the looking at the course of the library, you're actually looking at the budget 123,735, and the year-to-date actual was 231. So the parentheses is actually above what we expected. And then we adopted that. But then the negative, because it should be, it's not in kind of color, but the negative is on the reference surface. So we got the budget. Our reference was 54,000, and then year to date actually 337, which I believe was zip books, right? That was a negative of 49,673. That's where, so that's essentially, what would you call that? Like 58, around $58,000 above what we expected, or I'm sorry, 59,540. over. And then the general fund, those are like buying and replacement books, printing fees. That's where you'll see 8,761, so that's the purpose.
So because the budget was so low and, money that goes well for proposing budgets in the future? Do you look at actual when you prepare a budget? Or do you do a percentage up or down from whatever that budget is?
It depends on, for example, on the revenue. Last year, I put the revenue slightly lower for library administration because there were two large grants. One was 10 grants and 4 for the book. And the other one was myself with the children's area, right? So those are almost outliers because you don't know if you're going to get that much money because the state is not providing those kind of grants, right? So what we looked at for this year was kind of like, okay, we know we'll probably get the zip books, so let's put the zip books in there, but let's decrease the state grants amount. But the amount from Friends and Foundation, which was a set amount, like we think we're gonna get X amount, or we think we'll get $60,000 from this. We think we'll get, based on things excluding the other part. For the expenditures, the one thing that you can't always can't always plan for is a big, I would say a big decrease is that actually we didn't hire Melissa until May, right? And so that is a big salary savings of a cost that comes into the actual staff budget. So whenever you're having full-time positions and you have a gap in there, you're saving a lot in your salary.
And you're not good.
And that goes back to Joe. So that doesn't go back to us. So we don't plan for that. But what we did is the majority of our other things sort of like where we have certain contracts and services, collections, all of that, we try to keep those as similar as possible or an increase. This fiscal year, the city did pull some of those numbers down because of their budget and across the board there. But yeah, we try to plan in the beginning of the year for the general fund to say, like, okay, we know that it's going to cost us this much for this is library partnership membership, this much for CLA membership, it's going to cost us this amount for these kind of different memberships. And and then that's in your membership. And so those are somewhat fixed, right? And then so what happens is if there's anything that's increase or decrease, I have to work on the budget and actually provide that in that line item to the city if there is an increase in why. So some of these things like a contract, I say it's if you're writing a contract, for example, like our grants mentioning the vault has a per year lease. And I can't use it per like the same year for a year because that next year they've increased it by 3%. So I then increase the budget for the vault by 3%. Then I have to tell the city, I need 3% of money on this specific account because otherwise I can't pay for vault contract. So.
And one other question about the expenditures. So this wasn't the end of the fiscal year. The end of the fiscal year was June, but this was a little laggy, right? Because the question is, you don't spend all the money in your state budget for the.
Well, this is general fund right here. So for I would say some of those things there are like a little bit of encumbrances here where you say like 27,450. There's also an encumbrance of for the lockers that we're coming in at least close to $50,000 or so. So this is off a little bit by charges that once we receive the items, we're then going to charge them back for past fiscal year. So this is pretty close. This is pretty close to what we have for the energy.
So that's going to be pretty much spent for 100%.
I think we're still at the total amount. I would still say we're probably at 90% of the general fund. budget, and that part of that is because of salary savings from not having our positions full.
And so you're gonna be in June, you still have 10% of your budget, the city takes it back.
They use it, and I think cities often do that because of, they will have across the board positions, there's always gonna be salary savings through vacancies. So a lot of times, financial planners will build that into like a certain percentage that they think we're gonna be vacant at a time of the year. And that salary savings actually, like, let's say you plan for $100 million budget, but you only have $95 million to actually spend it. $5 million is gonna be from salary savings throughout, so you actually spent, you know, you budget 100, you actually spent 95, you plan 95.
And throughout the year, the city manager's office reminded us repeatedly, like, don't get any ideas for doing something else with your salary savings, because we've already accounted for it.
But as long as it, it's internal, but that's what I come in the next year and go, well, you didn't need all that money, so. Yeah.
I'd say
That's where I was.
the issue would be with some of those things, because for example, like we are currently both recruited for a library assistant too, and that's been vacant for several months, and you don't want to say, we don't need that the staff, because we've seen that, like, we're on our Mondays, we're really busy happening on that personnel's
But
covering
don't
Mondays.
you in fact need some of the salary savings to hire part-time people for the gap that you have? I mean, somebody has to do the work, even if you have.
Yeah, so it's, we have,
Before you hired Melissa, somebody was doing that work. Maybe it was you.
it's almost across the board, you know, but it's like, there's like, if, we have an account for full-time, we have an account for part-time, and we have an account for hourly part-time. And so
Okay, so can you move the salary savings to part-time?
we don't, we have not, but I would say, I think this year, not to look back at it, if we overspent by a little bit on our part-time hours, but that was because we opened Monday quite a bit by having those part-time hours. And there, we have other staff that are out, we have staff out on leave, and we need to fill in desk schedules and shifts and things like that. So those are things you can't always account for. But for me, if I do overspend on that budget, we don't shift the budget from there to there, because if we get a analysis from this year to next year, they look, well, you know, you didn't spend all your, whatever we call 4101, you didn't spend all your 4101, and you shifted it here, my numbers would be off. So you want to show that you've underspent, but you actually overspent, so I would overspend on that. But then when I file my, when the finance department asks me, why did you overspend on that? I'm gonna say, I overspent by $30,000 because we underspent by $200,000. That's the reason that I would put in that, but I wouldn't adjust the budget numbers, because then that would mess up everything for the next fiscal year.
Thank you. I want to just one more, this should have a food.
It should.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
And I was just gonna make sure that on the library trust fund, we don't get that.
Right. The
That
trust fund
really-
goes back into a cash account. There's a cash account which stays in there. Yeah. And per the city charter, the authorization for spending that is through the board of library trustees.
All right. Anybody else, anything on finance? So is this part of the, oh, right, this.
This statistical vote is not part of the actual consent agenda, because I was working on this packet on Monday and didn't know how to access this. So I did not upload it to it. So I can definitely upload it to the next.
Okay,
Add this.
so set this aside.
Yeah, set this aside.
Okay.
We'll put this on the next one.
Okay, I just want to, wow, the increases in. Yeah, there's some big.
And the closure schedule is pretty much like last year or this year.
Now, but I did see that the chocolate and wine was DVD, and I thought they were set.
I asked, and they told me they did not set. So if I can get a date, we'll put it on our
I
calendar.
thought it was February 21st,
Well, I didn't get
the Saturday after.
that'd be good.
President's Day, but yeah,
Let me know.
we'll find that out.
Let us know because we'd love to put it on our calendar.
Yeah.
So I will be there. Yes, I did have that one. This is the Bob Petty question, which is that Christmas, just goes Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, day after Christmas, and then the next day is a Sunday, and then next Sunday is a Monday. So it's really 4.5 days.
Mhm.
And the city, as far as the Saturday is concerned,
Yeah, so you better explain. that. Maybe before and after, for full-time work.
Yeah, so it's the working day before and the working day after. And so depending if it's Monday through Friday people or Tuesday through Saturday people, they're gonna have different holidays for the Christmas holiday. Since it's 3 days, but it's based on your working schedule.
I didn't realize it was 3 days.
But the library is closed on 3 of those days.
Right, that'd be the plan. And basically, in the past, it's been, since I've been here, it's been Kim and I like, hey, can we, let us be here if we are going to open on those days? And then you're part-time seasonal because your regular staff, your hourly employees, because your regular staff are on unpaid holiday.
Yeah, I think we consistently for years have had to do the 3 days just because of the way city holidays fall. And the fact that a lot of our on-calls aren't available either.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, if we are finished there, it says here public comment, but we already know that nobody is.
So they can confirm if there's any-
I can confirm there are no attendees, no public comments.
Okay, thank you. Then are there trustee comments?
I'll go.
Okay.
We're pleased to see this new initiative, the volunteer income tax assistance program. There are times when I've been stuck myself, so it'd be wonderful to have that program. I wish it all the success.
Very nice. Yeah. Anybody else?
I just looked at the new MCU placement. I would love to be a fly on the wall for the baby ring.
Oh.
Whose idea was that? That sounds-
Bianca is, yeah.
That one sounds, sounds like it would be a lot of fun.
You can always peer, you can come by and peer through the
That was
window.
very creative.
Anything, Katie? The only thing I wanted to say is that I did go to speak at city council last week about the libraries being forgotten in the announcements about ADA expenses. I might have been lost in the shuffle because there was something quite contentious right after me. I was just told to be on your way, but I said my piece, so. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Director?
Yeah, I just, thanks for the word, and thanks for Janet for presenting today, appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure, also that give her an opportunity to meet you guys, and also just for folks to know what some of the overview and scope of what's in our museum's collection. See. And also that we've got a week left in our summer reading program. So for a reminder for folks that, and for the board, get a game board, if you haven't already, it's always good to, fill this out, color it in. We're happy to say if you've already been reading for the summer, if you know it's only a week left, just color the time that you've done. But we love to see.
You get those sunglasses as a prize? If you do that?
If you make a special
Yeah,
request.
we can.
As far as
There are
brings
hot
you-
items around the city.
Yeah, so, but I just want to highlight, that I think the staff has done a fantastic job this year of doing programs for everyone in all ages, and it's really shown, and it's throughout the week, you see all the different people and families. So I'm happy to see all of them.
I think attendance has gone up in
congratulations on all of that. Any other comment? Well, then I think we are ready to adjourn at 5:21.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.